Okay, now that I have my layer panel all nice and organized, I am ready to bring in a secondary image to Composite. But the first thing we need to do is evaluate and take a look at that image to make sure it's going to work. So I have that image already opened in a new tab, and to simplify the process, I already did the setting of the lines of convergence. So I'll move over to my layers panel and turn those on. So shape 1 and shape 2. So I chose to use the lines in the sidewalk because those are the most consistent relative to my subjects where they're located. So they're on this plane in this graphic. So I chose down here. And also I have some other lines, but they could be irregular. So I could use the lines on the building, but if you notice, the ground plane actually drops down a little bit. So the trim on the building is really thin here, and it's really thick over there. So this line of convergence could actually be a false converging line. Now, I could also use the curb, but there could be a slight bend in this road that I'm just not seeing, so that may not be the best. So I just chose the sidewalk as a general reference. Then next, I found the cross location of those two lines of convergence, and then I set my guides by using my ruler function. So now I have my vanishing point and my horizon line. So if I take a look at where this vanishing point is in the image and my horizon line, I go back to my original composite base image layer, and it's a little higher in the other image. This one's a little down and to the left, and this one's a little up and to the right, but I feel like I can include most of these people in that image by this vanishing point and horizon line. So that is exactly how helpful this tool or this technique can be, because it allows you to quickly see if your subjects that you're going to bring into another file will actually fit in the location. So for instance, if my horizon line was either very high or very low, and my vanishing point was either extremely to the right or to the left, then when I came to this image, it would be possible that those people wouldn't fit at all in here. Because if they were far from the vanishing point, they may not even show up in the canvas. They may be over here, or they may be over here. And if it was high angle, they may be up here too high, or if it was low angle, they may be down here too low. So not only does it help you scale things in perspective on the z-axis, it also allows you to ID images that you're bringing into a composite-based image to make sure that they work. So let's do that. I'll select this tab. I can turn off my Shape 2 and Shape 1 layer. I can turn off my guides with Command semicolon. And then I go to my Select menu, is the manual route, and I do Select All, but first I want to make sure that my background layer is selected. So select the background layer, Select menu, Command A, or Select All. That gives you marching ants around the entire image. Then I go to my Edit menu and do Copy or Command C. Then I switch tabs or do Command tilde. We'll switch back to my other tab. And then I can come to my Edit menu and do Command V or Paste. And then that brings the graphic into the space. Now, we can clearly see that this graphic is very large, and this is basically the same step as jumping my background layer. So the next step I want to do before I scale it or transform it is encase it in a smart object. So I go to my panel menu and do Convert to Smart Object. And what that does is give me that smart object encasement. Now, since my graphic is very large, I can zoom out and then do Command T, and then I'll get my control handles, and I can scale it down using Shift and Option. So when I scale it down, I see the bounding box there, release my mouse, release my modifier, and then position this back into the canvas space, and then scale it down so that it fits into my canvas area and do Commit. Now, I also, when I'm going to zoom in, Command 0 here, if I wanted to, when I do Command T, remember I have controls of width and height up in the control panel. So I can click my link box, and then when I adjust these numbers, it will constrain proportions of that graphic and scale it based on its center target icon. So I'll discard that because I already sized it. So next, to position this, what I have to do is reference where it came from and where that vanishing point was. So if I turn these guides back on and deselect that selection and then turn my guides back on, I can tell that the vanishing point and horizon line location is right over his right shoulder. So then I come to my graphic here, I align the image so that my crosshairs of my vanishing point and horizon line, and I can use my arrow keys to be precise, is right over his right shoulder, like it is in this image space. And then once I get that set, then I can reduce my transparency on that layer to see where they rest properly in this scene. So we can see the guy on the right, I'll actually increase the transparency a little bit, that was a little too far. The guy on the right is probably not the best guy to choose to composite in this area because I can quickly see that he interferes with the guy walking down the side of the train tracks. So he's my worst option. The guy inside the train tracks, along with the woman, those both could work okay, but there needs to be some modification here because what I notice is that the horizon line in the second image is a little bit tilted, and also they're a little too low. Their feet are actually beneath the rocks, and they're not really aligned with where this guy is standing. And then the third guy over here on the left, he's a little too far out of the train tracks, and he's kind of half and half on the train rails and on the side, so he may not be my best option either. It could work after I do my modifications, but these two individuals are the best subjects. But since I know in advance this woman works really well, I want to use this figure because he actually introduces other problems that I can show you how to correct in the tutorials that we wouldn't have if we used her as our subject matter. So choosing the guy in the center of the railroad tracks, we're going to continue with and then follow the steps of masking him, readjusting, and scaling him into the space.